right, guys, let's jump into this deep dive head first.
Sounds good.
We're dissecting a book today, and let me tell you, it gets right to the heart of what we discuss here in the Married Red Pill community. All about marriage, but like the stuff nobody talks about, those hidden truths, the unspoken agreement.
Right.
And we're talking about the covert contracts, man, how they work, how they're changing, especially, well, with the rise of feminist and Marxist ideologies.
I think what's really interesting is how the book goes way back. It doesn't just complain about how things are now. It shows how marriage was structured for centuries, and then bam, this huge shift happened.
It's like they flipped the script on us.
Exactly.
And the chapter titles alone, man, they're like roadmap to everything we're going to uncover here.
Oh, yeah.
Things like the illusion of choice.
Oh, wow.
The war on masculinity, the myth of female equality, even the dark side of radical feminism. It's like the author knew exactly what we'd be digging into.
Absolutely. It's tailored for guys like us. Guys who are trying to figure this whole thing out.
That's it, man. And the first big thing the book tackles is like this whole idea of choice in relationship. We think we're making all these free decisions, right? But the book argues there's this whole layer of covert contracts underneath.
Oh, interesting.
Basically unspoken agreements. And sometimes one person might be getting, a really bad deal without even realizing it.
Like they're signing on for something they don't fully understand.
Exactly. And then you add in the whole no-fault divorce thing.
Yeah, that complicates things.
On the surface, it sounds fair, right? Anyone can end the marriage, no questions asked.
Yeah, that's how it's sold, right? Freedom and all that.
But the book says, hold on, this might actually be a huge trap.
Oh.
Especially for men.
And why is that?
Well, it goes into the whole history of divorce law.
Okay.
Back in the day, you needed a reason, a real reason, like abuse or infidelity.
Yeah, you had to prove something.
Yeah, it's like, I don't feel it anymore.
So what happens then?
Guess who usually ends up holding the bag?
Yeah, I see where this is going.
And the book uses real-life examples, man. Stories that'll make your blood boil.
Really?
Like, there's this story about Jack and Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah accused Jack of hiding assets during their divorce, even though he had proof he wasn't.
What? Seriously?
But because it was no fault, the court didn't really care.
That's messed up.
It is. And that's the point the book is making. The system, in many cases, is rigged against men.
So what's the solution?
Well, the book says you got to be prepared, legally prepared.
Okay, I'm listening.
Get that prenup, document everything, because the courts, they might not be on your side.
I guess it's better to be safe than sorry.
Exactly. And it's not just about the money either. The book talks about the emotional toll, too.
Yeah, that's the part that often gets overlooked.
There's a story about John, a software engineer. His wife, she just up and left him, took half his stuff, left him an absolute wreck.
Oh, man, that's rough.
And the book argues that this is what happens when individual happiness trumps everything else. Even contracts, even causing serious harm.
It's like collateral damage in the pursuit of personal fulfillment.
Exactly. And these ideologies, they've seeped into our legal and social system. We're living with the consequence.
And the book argues this is just the tip of the iceberg, right?
It goes even further, saying there's this whole war on masculinity going on. You see it everywhere. The media, education, even at home.
Give me an example. What do you mean?
Well, the book talks about this constant messaging that paints men as inherently dangerous.
Oh, yeah, I've noticed that.
Think about those slogans. Teach men not to rape. It's like they're saying all men are potential predators.
It creates this atmosphere of fear and suspicion around men.
Exactly. And the book doesn't just point fingers. It tries to understand why the manosphere has become such a big thing.
Especially communities like the Red Pill, right?
Yep. It argues that these spaces have emerged as a direct response to this attack on masculinity.
It's like a counter movement.
It is. The book describes the manosphere as a refuge, a place where men can talk openly, support each other.
Safe space, in a way.
Yeah. It even talks about the more extreme side, like MGTOW, where men are just opting out of relationships and societal expectations altogether.
It's like they're saying, if I'm the problem, I'm out.
Yeah. It's a strong reaction, but it shows how deep this sense of alienation goes.
Yeah, it's a pretty clear sign that something's wrong.
Right. But the book also gives a warning. Don't just blindly follow any ideology.
Okay, I get that.
Think for yourself, question everything. That's what it's all about.
It's about taking control, right?
Exactly. Understanding the forces at play and then making your own informed decisions. Like taking the red pill.
Yeah, you see the world for what it is, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then you choose your path.
You got it. You're in the driver's seat.
And this is where the book's take on Planned Parenthood gets interesting.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
It's a controversial topic, no doubt, but the book dives right in. It argues that, on the surface, their focus on women's empowerment seems positive.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
But there's this other side, this flip side, they say, that we don't often talk about.
Like what?
The book calls it the issue of lifestyle abortions and how that impacts men in traditional families.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a concern for a lot of guys. It's not something you bring up at the dinner table.
Exactly, but the book doesn't shy away from it. It lays out the numbers, points out that Planned Parenthood performs a huge chunk of abortions in the U.S. Yeah, and it's alarming when you think about how boys are being disadvantaged, how it affects them in the long run, and, society in general.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
The book uses some pretty crazy statistics.
Like what?
It mentions that boys are performing way worse than girls in reading and writing by the time they finish high school.
Serious. I mean, I knew things were bad, but...
Yeah, it's a complete reversal from, our father's generation. And the book puts the blame on this shift away from traditional teaching methods and masculine values.
So it's like they're not teaching boys how to be men anymore.
That's what the book is suggesting, yeah. It's like boys are being taught to be more emotional, sensitive, which isn't bad in itself.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance.
Right. The book says the pendulum has swung too far. It even compares it to boys being taught to be conspiratorially minded instead of strong and independent.
Whoa, that's a pretty harsh comparison.
It is, but it makes you think, right?
For sure.
The point is, boys need that balance. They need to learn resilience, leadership, responsibility, all those traditional masculine traits that used to be so valued.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the book ties this directly back to fatherhood.
Yeah, how so?
It talks about how fathers are essential in a child's life, especially for boys, and how the lack of strong father figures is causing all sorts of problems.
Oh, yeah, we see that all the time.
It goes beyond just saying two parents are better than one. It really digs into the specific roles fathers play.
What?
Teaching discipline, responsibility, how to navigate the world, all that stuff.
Yeah, those are crucial skills.
The book argues that fatherlessness is at the root of a lot of social issues, from crime to declining academic performance among boys.
It's like a chain reaction.
It is. And then to really drive that point home, the book shares these heartbreaking stories like there's this kid, Jack, who blamed himself for his parents' divorce.
Oh man, that's tough.
It just shows you how damaging these situations can be, especially when fathers are pushed out of the picture.
It's a reminder that we got to fight for fathers' rights, for policies that support families.
Absolutely. And the book goes even deeper, exploring the history of marriage, tracing it back to ancient Rome, China, way back.
It's fascinating to see how it's changed over time.
It is, and how it's always been this, vital part of society.
Yeah, it wasn't just a piece of paper.
Right. For most of history, divorce was a huge deal, a last resort.
It was like, you're in it for life.
But now, the book contrasts that with today, where marriage is seen as, this disposable thing.
Yeah, almost like a contract you can just break whenever.
And the book argues that's destabilized families and messed with society as a whole.
It's like they've changed the rules of the game without telling anyone.
It gets even crazier when the book talks about the government's role in all this.
What do you mean?
It claims that the rise of no-fault divorce wasn't just a natural thing. It was actively encouraged by policies that redefined marriage and family.
They were pushing it.
That's what the book suggests, yeah. And it gives some pretty shocking examples of how these policies backfire.
Especially for men, right?
Right. There's the story of John, who was forced to pay child support for over 20 years.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah, but he was denied any visitation rights to his kids.
It's like the system is designed to punish you.
That's the argument, yeah. The book uses these stories to show the systemic bias against men in the legal system, especially with divorce and child custody.
It makes you wonder if the scales are ever really balanced.
And it doesn't stop there. The book goes on to criticize the influence of gender studies.
Oh, wow. They go there.
Yeah, claiming that these academic disciplines have contributed to the emasculation of men.
I can see how some people would say that.
It's like they're pushing this idea that traditional masculine traits are toxic.
So being strong, assertive, a provider, those are all bad things now.
That's the message the book is challenging, yeah. And it gives this example of George, whose wife got, radicalized by her gender studies classes.
Oh.
Yeah, ended up divorcing him and taking a lot of his money.
It's rough.
It's supposed to show that these academic theories have real-world consequences.
Yeah, they do.
What the book is really pushing for here is critical thinking, questioning the assumptions, the biases that might be hidden in certain fields.
Don't just take everything at face value.
Exactly. Look for a more balanced perspective.
Do your own research, come to your own conclusion.
Exactly. And that leads into the book's analysis of how men are portrayed in entertainment.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's a common theme in the Red Pill community, this idea that men are always shown as either idiots or psychopaths.
Yeah, there's no in between.
Right. The book points to reality shows like The Bachelor, where men are often portrayed as player, manipulators.
It's like they're trying to make us all look bad.
And it goes beyond entertainment. The book criticizes the rise of gender-neutral or non-binary identity, arguing that it further erodes traditional masculine roles.
So it's like blurring the lines even more.
Yeah, making it even harder for men to find their place in society.
Like, where do we fit in if there are no clear roles anymore?
And the book ties this to the rise of the incel phenomenon.
That's a dark one.
It argues that it's a direct result of men feeling emasculated, having a harder time forming relationships.
Like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, sense of loneliness, frustration that builds up.
And can manifest in some really unhealthy ways.
The book suggests that this alienation among men could lead to some pretty serious consequences for individuals and for society as a whole.
It's a wake-up call for sure.
We need to be talking about these issues, finding solutions that actually work for everyone.
Absolutely. And then the book circles back to traditional family structure.
Oh, that's a big shift.
Yeah, because we're constantly told that traditional families are outdated.
Like it's old-fashioned, right?
But the book argues that the traditional family, with a father at the head and a mother as the primary caregiver, is the best model for raising kids. It's like going back to basics.
Right, and for creating a stable society.
I know some people might disagree, but
Yeah, it's definitely a controversial topic.
the book brings up research showing that kids from two-parent families tend to do better in life.
Yeah, in terms of education, health, overall well-being.
It's not just about having two parents. It's about the specific roles each parent plays.
Right. Mothers provide nurturing, emotional support, while fathers bring discipline, guidance.
It's about balance, right?
Exact. Those roles complement each other, and kids need both to thrive.
And it ties back into the book's earlier points about traditional masculine values.
Right. Fathers teaching those values to their sons.
Strength, courage, honor, responsibility.
All the stuff that builds character helps you contribute to society.
It's like a blueprint for raising good men.
And the book doesn't just talk about the benefits of traditional families, it also digs into the negative consequences of family breakdown.
The other side of the coin.
Yeah, like statistics showing kids from single-parent families are more likely to struggle with poverty, drop out of school, get involved in crime.
It's a harsh reality.
It is, and it reminds us why we need to fight for policies that support families, encourage fathers to be involved.
Absolutely.
And then the book takes a critical look at the ideologies it says are driving these societal changes.
This is where it gets controversial.
Yeah, calling out Marxism, critical theories, queer theory, gender studies, feminism.
That's a pretty big list.
Argues that these ideologies have systematically tried to dismantle the traditional family.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
It is, but the book argues that they promote this idea that traditional families are oppressive, that they create inequality.
So it's like they're trying to break down the foundation.
And the book pushes back, saying that the breakdown of the family has actually led to more problems.
More instability, more suffering, especially for kids.
It's a really thought-provoking argument. Are these progressive ideologies actually making the world better?
Or are they creating more problems than they solve?
And then the book brings up religion,
Oh, interesting.
highlighting how many religions emphasize marriage, family, the specific roles of husbands and wives.
Yeah, a lot of religions are built around those ideas.
And the book contrasts that with the more individualistic approach to relationships that's common in secular.
Like, it's all about me now.
And it gives examples of how different religions approach these issues. Like, it talks about Shalom Bayit in Judaism, which focuses on peace and harmony within the home,
That's a beautiful concept.
while acknowledging that some religious interpretations can be problematic.
Yeah, there's always that balance.
The book also points out that religious communities offer support, guidance to family,
A sense of belonging, shared values.
and that can be beneficial for everyone, individuals, and society as a whole.
You know, it's crazy because we're always hearing how the traditional family is like a thing of the past.
Right, like it's outdated.
But this book, it makes this really strong argument about how the decline of fatherhood is a major problem.
It's not just about, like, missing your dad.
Exactly. It's about missing those crucial lessons that fathers teach, especially to their sons.
Yeah, the stuff you just don't get anywhere else.
The book has this one example, I mean, it's really powerful, of this guy who says his success, everything he's achieved, it's all because of his dad.
Because of his dad.
Yeah, all the guidance he got, the lessons on hard work, perseverance, integrity, you know.
Like his dad was his mentor.
Exactly. And it makes you realize that fathers have this, like, unique impact, you know.
Right, it's a different kind of influence.
And the book goes on to talk about the darker side of no-fault divorce.
Oh, yeah, how it hits men specifically.
It's like this system, it was supposed to be fair, but it ended up creating this whole new mess.
New set of problems, yeah.
And some of the stories in the book, man, they're almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like this guy, George, he lost everything in his divorce.
Everything.
His kids, his house, his savings, everything. Just because his wife decided she wasn't happy anymore.
That's rough.
It's brutal, and the book says this isn't just an isolated case.
It's like a pattern.
Yeah, it argues there's this systemic bias against men baked into the legal system, and it's driven by radical feminist ideology.
That's a bold statement.
It is, but the book even cites statistics, like how fathers almost never get primary custody.
Wow.
And they're way more likely to be financially devastated after divorce.
It's like the odds are stacked against you from the start.
It's scary stuff. And the book goes even deeper, talking about the psychological impact on men.
Oh, yeah, the emotional toll.
It's like a double whammy. You lose everything, and then you're made to feel like it's all your fault.
Like you're the one to blame.
Exactly. And the book says this can lead to, like, serious issues.
Like what?
Nation, emasculation, despair.
It's a heavy load to carry.
It is. And it's no wonder we're seeing so many men struggling with depression, even suicide.
It's like society's telling them they're disposable, and the legal system just reinforces that message.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak.
It makes you wonder, how do you even approach relationships when the rules seem so rigged?
That's the big question, right? And the book really tries to unpack this whole thing with consent theory.
Consent theory.
Yeah, and how it's playing out in modern relationships, especially marriage.
It's a tricky subject for sure.
It is, and consent is important, obviously.
Of course.
But the book argues it's been, like, twisted, weaponized almost, and it creates this constant fear for men.
Like you're always walking on eggshells.
Yeah, like one wrong step, and you're facing a false accusation.
That's a scary thought.
And it uses this example, it's really messed up, about this guy, Toby.
What happened to him?
His wife falsely accused him of cheating just to get an advantage in their divorce.
Wow, just like that.
It's crazy. And the book says this is happening more and more.
Seriously?
Yeah, and it's like the system rewards this manipulation, and men are left to deal with the fallout.
So it's like you're guilty until proven innocent.
It feels that way sometimes, and it makes you question this whole idea of female equality, you know?
Right, like what does that even mean anymore?
The book argues that this pursuit of absolute equality, it's come at a cost, especially for men.
It's like the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction.
Exactly. And the book says that while women have definitely made progress, this push for, like, total sameness, it ignores the inherent differences between men and women.
It's like trying to force everyone into the same mold.
And it can actually end up hurting both sides.
Interesting.
And the book points to all these young men who are dropping out of college, struggling to find work, just retreating into video games.
Yeah, I've heard about that trend.
And it says this is happening because men are being told their traditional roles, their values, they're not needed anymore.
Like they're being pushed aside.
It's like society's saying you're obsolete. And the book gives this warning. It's pretty stark.
What does it say?
It says this trend could lead to some really bad stuff.
Like what?
Social unrest, more violence, just a general decline in, how society functions.
It's a bleak outlook.
It is, but it's a wake-up call, We got to start talking to these issues, figuring out solutions that actually work for everyone.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly. And I think this deep dive, it's given us a lot to think about.
It has. It's been pretty intense.
We've covered so much, from the hidden stuff in marriage and consent theory to the whole war on masculinity and the importance of family.
It's been a whirlwind of ideas for sure.
It has. And some of the stuff in the book, it's definitely controversial.
Yeah, it challenges a lot of the mainstream narrative.
It does. But it's clear the author, he's tapped into something real, something that a lot of men are feeling.
That sense of being lost, misunderstood.
And if you're interested in digging deeper, really exploring these ideas.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear more.
I highly recommend checking out the book.
Where can we find it?
It's on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Perfect. I'll definitely check it out.
Guys, this has been a heavy one, but I think it's important to have these conversations.
Yeah, we got to keep talking, keep questioning, keep searching for the truth.
That's what it's all about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep those minds open.